Middle East tensions remain high. Today, officials from Israel, the U.S., Egypt, and Qatar have paused discussions of a ceasefire deal to end the 10 months of fighting in Gaza. Hamas did not join the meetings this week, accusing Israel of adding new demands to previous proposals. A ceasefire, however, could ease tensions of a wider conflict. Negotiators are hoping the move will hinder Iran and Hezbollah from launching retaliatory attacks against Israel, who they blame for killing their top leaders in recent airstrikes. Joining us now, retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General, it's always great to have you. So we're just getting word of the pause on these talks. Based on your experience and all that we know, what do you believe is happening behind the scenes at this hour?
Kelly, the pause is beneficial because it does depressurize the situation. And I do think it gives Iran a possible off-ramp to stop doing what none of us want them to do.
And there is this looming threat of imminent retaliation by Iran. You alluded to it. How does that factor into these discussions in general?
Ultimately, the Ayatollah has made some threats of revenge going forward, and the possibility of an Iranian or Hezbollah strike is very real. And the only way to stop that is to provide a way to save credibility and face for the Ayatollah.
So the Gaza Health Ministry reports more than 40,000 deaths. That count does not distinguish between civilians and militants. Even if a ceasefire is agreed upon, what do you see happening as we move forward?
Kelly, it is heartbreaking just to think of those 40,000, and all of that was because of Hamas's attack on October 7th. And frankly, they have had a very real strategy to maximize human suffering in Gaza that have precipitated all of those deaths. The challenge as a part of these negotiations is that Israel cannot see a way forward in which Hamas remains some level of control or power in Gaza. And Hamas is not going to be willing to give up some level of control as well. And so really the negotiations, now that they are extended into next week, and some of those negotiators have said that hopefully by the end of next week, there'll be some sort of an agreement, hinges upon that one singular issue, which is the future of Hamas. And Hamas has been the one that has caused these casualties of 40,000 or so. And now going forward, they are the ones that have to decide how much power they're willing to give up to try to walk away and survive at the end of what has been a very brutal 10 months for them and for the Palestinians.
You know, to your point regarding the Gaza Strip, earlier in the week, Israeli planning authorities, they formally signed off on a new Israeli settlement. I know you know about this, in the occupied West Bank, appearing to prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. So considering a significant amount of international community viewing this move as illegal, do you believe it's wise to do it at this hour?
All politics is local, Kelly, and this is just another example of how some of the more strident conservative elements of Israeli society and the Israeli government are trying to maintain some level of credibility and control in places within the West Bank. And you are right, a lot of the international community and many of the population centers within Israel see this as illegal. But the challenge really remains that this is a part of Israeli territory, and some of those more strident elements are not listening to calls to defuse the situation, and things like this just make it more inflammatory as we try to find a way out of the current crisis that we see that is a multifaceted one.
Yes. So this week, the Taliban, they also hosted a parade showing off billions in U.S. equipment left after the withdrawal. What does that say about their strength and what it could mean for stability in this region overall?
It really is a reminder of tragedy, of a vile and reckless decision by the Biden administration to pull out in the way that it did, that left behind billions of dollars of equipment and U.S. citizens and our allies and partners from Afghanistan. And that parade is really just a chance for the Taliban to show us that they overcame our long enduring time and presence in Afghanistan. And it really is just a chance to degrade our credibility and to show their strength and superiority based on that decision from 3 years ago.
All right. Thank you so much, John Teichert. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.